Welcome to a little fireside chat with Ryan. So, fireside chat, it's more like fireside thoughts, but I'm Ryan, your host of Whiskey and Washers. Tonight, it's just been so damn hot. So, my friend Rhonda had just a fantastic idea. Um, I'm going to drink Booker's tonight. There you go. That's what I'm drinking. So, gonna enjoy it. It's not gonna be a bourbon show though. So, my friend Rhonda, we have some of the most interesting conversations. That's Simon walking by. And so we were discussing a few things, kind of topical. Years ago, she told me about this guy named Walter Russell, right? Some genius from the times of like Einstein and Nikola Tesla. They're kind of overlapping figures. And years ago, she told me about him. And then she starts talking about Terrence Howard, the actor, which is very pertinent right now. She's been kind of following what he's been talking about for years as well. Booker's is nice. Thank you for making a good bourbon. So, she and I always have just such fun and interesting conversations about aliens, time travel, Walter Russell, Nikola Tesla, just all these minds that make you think, that really gets that brain activity going, I guess. Thought provoking. So, anyway, we were having a conversation today, Rhonda and I, and she was like, "Oh, I saw one of your videos, and sound wasn't great." And I was like, "Yeah, I appreciate it. So, we were just talking, and she was giving me some very useful, I wouldn't even call it criticism, but just useful insight. And our conversation earlier, I'd watch something if you were talking about that. Like, that was a lot of fun. So, hopefully I can get her on here, too. Because this is basically all her idea. Like, I'm just putting it into a format. So, thank you, Rhonda, and cheers. Appreciate you, as always. What a great friend. And hopefully what I'll do is maybe just call her sometime, get her on the show, see what we can discuss, because it's always great to bounce ideas off of people that have kind of similar um, deep thoughts, I guess, like introspective thoughts. And so it's so much fun. So tonight, I'm going to sit here by the fire, hence the name Fireside Thoughts with Ryan. I think that's what we'll go with. But anyway, so we're going to talk a little Terrence Howard. So if you haven't seen the Joe Rogan podcast with him on it, I definitely highly recommend it. Even if you don't believe anything he says, if it just gets you to think a little bit about something you may not have, it's worth it. And it is so thought provoking. It is awesome. So he discusses a lot of things on there, and a lot of them are over my head. I'm by no means a scientist. I'm just a guy that enjoys new trains of thought, I guess. So one of the things I'm going to discuss tonight from his discussion with Joe Rogan and previous, he's been to Oxford, and look him up. There's a lot of good. This is not a new thing for him. He's been on this train for a while. So he discusses that he doesn't think our math is quite right. And if you're not a mathematician, that can be really hard to follow. And I've thought about it a lot, and I don't know if it's an epiphany, but here are my thoughts on it. So his his basis of why we kind of have math wrong is there's a few things. So he does a thing, and I'm going to butcher this, but he basically, so you take 2, you cube it, and then you take the square root, and you do like, and he does it, and he does it in front of audiences and whatnot, and you end up with a repeating factor, um, and not meaning like a third, 0.333. It's, you can do these formulas and you get the same result no matter what, and that should be literally impossible. And so he also discusses, why is 1 plus 1 a higher value than 1 times 1? So 1 times 1 is 1, right? 1 plus 1 is 2. And it does get you thinking. So you may be thinking to yourself, okay, like math has been around for thousands of years. It's never changed. It's supposedly universal, right? Okay. All factual. And but he does bring up some good points, and I'd like to kind of touch on it. So the 1 plus 1, right? So it's easy to visualize. I have a glass of bourbon right there. You see it. So here is another glass of bourbon, right? So you take the first glass plus the second glass. I have 2 glasses of bourbon, right? 1 for each hand. That's right, double fisting. Easy peasy, okay? So I've got another glass of bourbon. Oh, and I love them. Thank God I do. So, oh, and I also have another glass of bourbon. So I have 2 glasses of bourbon in this scenario as well, right? So my 1 glass of bourbon times my other glass of bourbon only equals 1 glass of bourbon. Okay? How's that even possible? Where'd the other glass go? So which one? Which one survived? The 1 times 1. And you'll be like, Ryan, that's a horrible, horrible example. Yeah, it may be. Apple falls off a tree. Another apple falls off a tree. 1 plus 1, 2. 2 apples fell off the tree, right? 1 apple falls off a tree. Another apple falls off a tree. The first apple times the second apple equals which apple? It's still 1. And I was discussing this because, like, I finally figured out a way how he thinks about math. I think Terrence Howard I'm talking about. So he's saying that works great, right, in 2 dimensions. Like, and mathematicians say, well, you're actually not timesing 1 times 1. You're multiplying something by itself. Okay, right? At least that's an argument that could be made. But the universe doesn't work like that. So it's not universal math. So let's say the universe creates an atom. Creates another atom. You have 2 atoms, right? So you multiply those atoms together. How is there only 1 atom? What happened to the other atom? You add those 2 together, right? You got that atom plus atom, and you got another atom. And so I think we have a good fundamental understanding of math. And again, I'm not a scientist. Like, this is just kind of stuff that I think about when Terrence Howard gets me down this road, right? So, right, yeah, okay. Here's another example. Here's Olive. Oh, you can't see her. You might be able to. There's Olive. So that's a cute dog. And there's Simon, my other cute dog. You might not be able to see him. We'll find out when this starts showing. So I have 2 dogs, right? I have Olive plus Simon. I have 2 dogs. But if I multiply Olive by Simon, I only have 1 dog. Which dog do I have? And again, Ryan, these are horrible examples. Okay. So if this is universal math, why doesn't it work in every situation? Like, it doesn't matter what you should multiply by something. Can I multiply a banana by an apple? Well, yeah. You sure can. Why not? You can have an apple and you can have a banana physically. But you can't multiply those together because you end up with 1 item. Which one do you have? Do you have a banana or do you have an apple? So that's really helped me understand, because let's think about the universe. The universe doesn't work in uh, let's say non-factuals, right? So you can write a 1 on the page and you can times 1 and you got 1, right? But that's not how the universe is working. You actually have physical objects. We need a universal math. We need a math that works for the universe. Like he always relates it, Terrence Howard, he always relates it. I'm going to get this fire going a little bit. It's slowly dying down. Not that I need heat, but it sure is a nice ambiance. He also discussed our math with currency. So our math has to go to has to work with real objects. You tell me I have a dollar in my left hand, I have a dollar in my right hand. So 1 plus 1, I have $2, right? But you take my $1 and you take it times the other dollar in my right hand. That only leaves me $1. Where does the other one go? Which one survived the 1 times 1? And yeah, think about that. Let that sink in. Like that just, oh my God, it blows my mind. So I love his way of thinking about things. And it's made me think about how to better understand it, because he definitely has a far greater understanding of math than I do, and the universe and everything. I mean, his video, you just check it out and just make your own judgment on it. That's all I gotta say. But um, he's right. It's almost a 2D math. So you can put it on paper, it works on paper, but you put it in the universe, it doesn't work. Like, those fundamentals are not sound. And I mean, you think I have an answer for it? I don't have an answer for it. Obviously, like I'm just a guy out here drinking bourbon by a fire, but there's definitely something to how he looks at the universe, um, that is different and unique, and I think that's what it's going to take for us as humans, us on planet Earth, to hopefully not destroy it before it's too late. I mean, like, and that laugh is a laugh of, like, is it too late? Who knows? Like, it's not too late for Earth. Earth is going to survive. But us as humans, are we going to, in 5,000 years, are we going to be similar to what's going on today in terms of our science? Or are we going to go back to an evolutionary stage where damn near all the human race got knocked out and we're going to start back and have to relearn everything? I feel like it's happened lots of times over the history of our planet, which we totally don't understand. And one thing that I liked Terrence Howard's thought, and something I actually did not know, and it's super thought provoking. Let's go this direction. So he discusses how planets form, and um, where they form, and just that entire process of how a solar system becomes. And his thinking is totally different, and it is so intriguing. Okay, so his thought is, so every planet the the star produces every planet. So your planets, it's going to shoot. So basically, and this is going to be very rudimentary, but solar flares eventually coalesce around the sun, just basically form um, almost like a not like an asteroid belt, but like similar in thought process. And it ends up coalescing just like everything does, and then your planet's going to form really close to the star, and this is 100% factual, and I may be off on the exact amount, but every planet moves away from its host star by like 2.5 centimeters a year. Like, and it's known, like, this is a scientific fact. And so he discusses that. He goes, well, why would that happen? And so he thinks that everything starts close and then just eventually drifts away. So every planet that forms around a star eventually goes through the Goldilocks zone. And now that doesn't mean it's going to produce life for even humans, but the moons may. Like Jupiter can't. You're not going to have life on Jupiter, the planet itself, but you may have life on its moons. And if those moons spent millions of years in the habitable zone, like, life's going to happen. Like, and they think life happened on Mars. Well, how many hundreds of millions of years ago? Billions. Like, we're talking billions of years. Um, because, like, if you do the calculations, then it would take, I don't know which the furthest actual planet is that we consider. I think it might be Neptune, but he said that at that pace it would have been 2 trillion years, I think. So he thinks the universe is just an insane amount of time longer than most scientists. And that spot on Jupiter, the red spot. Everybody knows about the red spot. It's been around since Galileo pulled out his telescope back then and saw it. So he thinks that's going to end up turning into a moon. That will basically, and I don't know how he describes it, but like that's going to be kind of the burp of Jupiter, like a star would burp in terms of solar flares. Everything exhales in inhales. That's his overlying premise, I guess. Everything exhales and inhales. Everything's alive. Everything breathes, and it may not breathe in the sense that we breathe, but it has to take in energy and release energy. Breathe in, breathe out. Eat food, crap it out. Right. So he said that's what Jupiter is doing right now. Eventually, that red spot will um, form into another moon, and that got me thinking. Okay, so scientists believe that a planet ran into Earth however many billions of years ago, and they collided at just the right angle, and then the moon formed from that collision. Okay, but interestingly, the moon is also going away from Earth at that same rate, which is just baffling. So did the moon? So did Earth actually exhale the moon? That it gets you thinking. And I'm gonna have a great full moon here to show you here in a minute, but it. I love how he just thinks of things differently, and then in turn, you hear him, and then he in turn makes you think about the same things, and you may think about them differently. But that's a fantastic thing, and I'm gonna get a little more fire going. God, that's a good bourbon. Um, I think when he challenged all these scientists, because that's basically what he did. He's like, "Hey, like, come, I'll show you." And I mean, he went on the. Sorry, this is gonna be a little weird. Um, he was on. God, I can't remember. Princeton, I think, let them use their computer, and It's not necessarily like a supercomputer, but what it does is you it's a simulator type thing, right? So you put in parameters and it'll tell you how atoms react in real time, right? And it was fascinating. And so his big thing is not necessarily that gravity doesn't exist, but the electrical fields and magnetic fields interact, and that produces basically what we know as gravity. Because he doesn't think that it's necessarily just massive objects, because why do things float away from Earth? If we're on this big, huge, just gravitational pull from Earth, and I'm not talking about planes, I'm not talking about birds, I'm talking of, like, his example was a balloon. So a balloon is going to rise, and that's more due to temperature than anything, right? So think about a balloon rising. It's going to rise, and then as the air comes out, it's got to be helium. The helium is lighter than air. It rises, and there you go. That's why it does that. So, but he goes, think about that same balloon. You put a little static electricity on it. Interesting. Okay, you do that. It's going to stick to an electrical field. It sticks to your body. It'll stick to metal objects. So, what he's trying to demonstrate is that force is way more powerful than gravity. This little light balloon is now getting pulled down by gravity. It's attaching itself to other electrical fields, and so his demonstration that he does, and he had it and he recorded it, and he put basically a magnetic and a electrical field, and he basically attached them, right? And not attach them where he didn't tape them together, nothing like that. But basically, he formed a bond with them. That's a great way to put it. Okay, so they formed this bond. Puts that in the Princeton computer simulator to see what atoms will do around it. It formed Saturn with the rings, with the hexagonal, whatever you want to call it, on the northern pole of, like, it made it a replica of Saturn to a T just by starting these two, an electrical and a magnetic field, and bonding them together. I mean, it was fascinating. And he's just working on things like that, and it's just, God, it's fun to think about. It's so thought provoking. He talks about, and Walter Russell talks about this too. If you've never heard of Walter Russell, and Terrence Howard kind of gets your brain excited just thinking, go check out Walter Russell. And the only reason I know about Walter Russell is my friend Rhonda, and I'll tell you what, the periodic table that we use today, and Terrence Howard is like wants to totally reshape it. It's exactly what Walter Russell wanted to do 100 years ago or whatever it was. Like, and he's basing his table off of what Walter Russell did, and a lot of his thoughts, and using frequency, like literally frequency waves, sound waves. Um, I think a lot of that originated from Walter Russell. And so it's just so entertaining. And I just hope that it just gets some people thinking. That's all you got to do. Just different ways of thinking, ways to contradict. That might be not a poor use of a word, but things that. This is how Rhonda described it. She's like, she wasn't, by her words, never great at math. Whatever. None of us feel like they are, except for very select few. And for most people, math is hard or weird, but she intuitively thought, like, it's wrong. Like, something is not right about this. And I think that's what Terrence Howard just kind of felt about how we look at things just in general. And it is just thought provoking, intriguing, and it's just fun. Like, it's fun, and I'm hoping that it'll open up more conversations. I get a ton of stuff on YouTube about it. Granted, like, it's part of my thread. You know how that goes on YouTube. But um, you got to check it out. I'm on it. I'm. It is thought provoking, and then something else he mentioned. So he goes. So he's building a. Oh, I'm gonna have to look it up real quick. Um, so basically, his entire premise kind of boils down to. Um, hold on. I'm looking it up right now. The linchpin. That's what it is. So he describes the linchpin, which is basically that bond or that attraction or the interaction of magnetic and electrical fields. And that's his basis of everything that have his understanding of the universe. And so his linchpin is basically that bond, as I was kind of describing before, that bond of how he started the planet Saturn through a simulator with just those two bonds. And he feels he can use the physical um, formation, I guess is the best way to describe it, of a magnetic field and a electrical field. And then he can bond them together. And he'll turn that into basically a little drone, right? Some sort of drone type flying object, okay? So he does that. Well, let's say you need more power. You're going to use it as a crane or whatever it is. You just bond another one with it, and you have a more powerful version of it. And how he describes it, he goes, right now I'm using propellers on it. Like, he has prototypes and whatnot. And he goes, eventually you'll just use the frequency of Earth. And so Earth will move. So you can use, how I like to describe it. So I don't understand how he describes it, right? So you want to be on the same frequency as Earth. What does that even matter? So Earth has a tone, supposedly. And Terrence Howard talks about this, Walter Russell. Quite a few. Like, you can find some really cool videos of sand on basically like a speaker, and then they tone it, and it'll make different formations in it. And it's kind of mesmerizing. It's really cool. Well, everything in the universe has tone. They're riding waves. It's vibrating. And so he goes, if you can match the exact tone of Earth, Earth will move, and you won't, basically. So the Earth is spinning really fast on its axis, right? Well, it's also moving through space at a very rapid pace, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of miles an hour, as we're rotating around the center of the Milky Way. So he says if you can match that frequency, well, you can go as fast as the Earth is moving, I think he describes about 1,000 miles an hour. So you're not. So there's no force of gravity on you. You're just using the tone to navigate. Kind of like what you hear about when UAPs, when UFOs are flying over and they're making dramatic changes in course and flying fast and things that are happening on their ship that would end up crushing anything alive with the G forces as we know it. Gravity force, that's what G force is, gravity force, which is interesting. So, but his saying is, well, you do this, you're not using gravity, you're basically using the opposite of gravity, right? You're toning with Earth. And he goes, you can tone with the Milky Way. The Milky Way is spinning at whatever pace, then you can move that fast. The universe is expanding. If you can find that tone, you can move as fast as the universe. And I found that interesting because Rhonda had told me about that, is kind of how Walter Russell viewed the universe. And I'll be honest, I watch a lot of things on UFOs, on the unknown, the unexplained. Like, I love it. I love it. So, a lot of these pilots will end up getting radar on UAPs and UFOs, and they can't explain it. And they're like, it went 1,000 miles an hour from this point to this point, and it went from this point to this point, and they do the math and the time, and it's like it was moving about 1,000 miles an hour. But then it stopped on a dime, and then it went straight up into the atmosphere, and it was gone. Like those stories from reputable pilots, and I mean those are prevalent. And how Terrence Howard describes how if you can find that exact frequency, the Earth is literally moving at 1,000 miles an hour. Like, that's not proof 1 + 1 = 2 proof, but damn, that might be 1 × 1 = 1 proof. I mean, so anyway, like, I don't know where else I want to go with this, but I've enjoyed just kind of throwing some thoughts out. Hopefully that'll make you think about some thoughts yourself. Fire is very abysmal. My apologies for that. It's really hot and humid right now, and it is not good burning weather. I got some branches of trees that have fallen, and they were still a little bit. They've not quite weathered enough to get a good burn, but hopefully you can see it just a little bit. There you go. But so those are my fireside thoughts with Ryan. I'm just going to go ahead and post this to my Whiskey and Washers page. And if you have any thoughts, let me know. If you enjoyed it, if not, like, these are kind of what what goes on in my brain. So I love to share them with you. Hopefully this will get you kind of on a interest pass of the unknown, Terrence Howard, Walter Russell. Look them up. You can find them. The Walter Russell, it's hard to find. But I don't know if it was either Einstein or Nikola Tesla back in the day. Describe Walter Russell as the smartest living man. And I think it might have been Einstein. I mean, you talk about a Leonardo da Vinci of our time. It's amazing. He sculpted. Oh God, Rhonda just told me this today. What did he sculpt? Here you go. So his very first sculpture he ever did is somebody commissioned him to do a sculpture of Twain. Uh-oh, something scary is happening. Mark Twain, right? And he did a out of rock. Basically, he just carved it out of rock. And it was the very first one he did. And he just did it. Like, hey, we're going to commission you to do this because we know you are one of the smartest people alive and you'll just do a great job. Leonardo da Vinci. I mean, Walter Russell. Go ahead and take care of that for us. So, I mean, that's the kind of man that I believe Terrence Howard is getting a lot of his not ideas, but his foundation maybe from. But just so interesting, and I appreciate you sitting out here and listening to me babble about it. So, with that, I'm going to. The dogs just went inside. I think it's time for me to call it a night as well. Thanks for joining me.